All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are continuing our Exodus study. We're now in Exodus chapter 24. We're going to look at Israel affirming the covenant with Yahuwah. We just come out of understanding in chapter 23 how Yahuwah was going to be with the children of Israel through all of their battles, through everything that was surrounding them. So we have eight, let me see. All right, let's read the first 8 verses. We'll talk about that, and then we'll read the final uh, 10 verses and finish it up. So who wants to read first? Verses 1 through 8. Go ahead, Brother Nathaniel.
And to Moshe he said, "Come up to Yahuwah, you and Aharon, Nadab and Abihu, 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall bow yourselves from a distance, but Moshe shall draw near to Yahuwah by himself, and let him not draw near, nor let the people go up with him." And Moshe came and related to the people all the words of Yahuwah and all the right rulings. And all the people answered with one voice and said, "All the words which Yahuwah has spoken we shall do." And Moshe wrote down all the words of Yahuwah and rose up early in the morning and built a slaughter place at the foot of the mountain in the 12 standing columns of the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, and they offered ascending offerings and slaughterings of peace offerings to Yahuwah of bulls. And Moshe took half the blood and put it in basins, and half the blood he sprinkled on the slaughter place. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, "All that Yahuwah has spoken we shall do and obey." And Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, "See the blood of the covenant which Yahuwah has made with you concerning all these words."
Praise Yah.
So,
Go ahead.
there's an interesting take here. A lot of times, people when they look at this, they see it as the law of Moses. It's the law of Moses, but what does it say in and it even is called the law of Moses, and I'm not going to discount by calling it that, but what is it that they're submitting to? Verse 7, all that Yahuwah has spoken, right? Verse what does it say that Moshe went in and wrote it all down? So Moshe came and related to the people all the words of Yahuwah and all the right rulings. Verse 3 says that. So it's what Moshe wrote down from what Yahuwah said. So I think I touched on it in our earlier when it talks about like the book of Colossians. Like, it's interesting when you start to dissect what is actually being said. So like in the book of Colossians chapter 2, just quickly, I'm on paper, so I'm a little slower. In Colossians 2, what it says here is verse 16, "Let no one there judge you in eating or drinking or respect of a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath, which are the shadow of what is to come, but the body of Messiah." These things, the Sabbath, these new moons, these judgments, these right rulings, these are things that are not man-made. These are things that were given to man and spoken to man by Yahuwah. And this is what the people were submitting to. And this is what we need to submit to also, is that. So that's just what stands out to me, importantly, or first and foremost.
Yeah, the book of the covenant, we're talking about everything from chapter 20 up to the end of chapter 23, is what he's written down here for them to look at. Very good. I wanted to look at the first 2 verses because it's kind of sets the stage for what we're understanding is happening here. He says, now he said to Moshe, come up to Yahuwah, you, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship from afar. And Moses alone shall come near Yahuwah, but they shall not come near nor shall the people go up with him. So you have here distinctions, right? He has the set apart family, the set apart nation, but then he sets other people apart too. So he takes Aaron, Nahab, and Abihu, his two sons, right? And then 70 of the elders that were chosen. So remember, they chose all of the elders, but then 70. So these are even set apart from all of the elders that are there, because these are going to be the ones that the people are going to come to. These are going to be the ones that are going to rightly divide the word of truth as it pertains to the issues of the children of Israel. All of the things that were going on, they were going to be the judges. They had to be consecrated, right? But he says, but keep them afar, even them, even those set apart ones, and only Moses, will come close to me. So he has to set apart from the set apart, to do the right rulings, right? So I thought that was very interesting in this section of the chapter, to set us up for what we're seeing and what's happening here. What else we see there? Anyone? All right. Well, let's keep reading and dissecting. Oh, go ahead, Nathaniel.
Sorry, I couldn't get my hand up quick enough. There's in someone's own personal time, there's a YouTube video. It's called Finding the Mountains of Moses. They get into just archaeological research. And here in 20 verse 4, and I think there's other places also. 20 verse 4, it talks about the 12 standing columns for the 12 tribes of Israel. This is they believe to have found this, which is not in the Sinai Peninsula. Constantine's mother was trying to find Mount Sinai, so she wrongfully found Mount Sinai in what is now called the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, which was named the Sinai Peninsula. But when you read Galatians chapter 4, Paul discusses that Sinai is in Arabia, which is the Arabian Peninsula, and they today, even to this day, or at least as far as I know, that the airspace is restricted. They interviewed a World War II pilot that was told to fly around it, and a United States World War II pilot that was told to not fly over the mountain. It's restricted airspace, but he flew around it, and there's a bunch of other aspects. But those 12 stones are still visible today if you're looking in the right spot. And I just kind of wanted to highlight that it's interesting that we don't necessarily archaeology is a faith building aspect, because a lot of times the enemy tries to wrongfully label things or wrongfully put things or say that there is no evidence for this or no evidence for that, but and doesn't promote it. But when you're actually looking for it, we find that it's there, and those 12 columns, and also the altar. They believe that they found kind of remnants of the altar, and then also where the golden calf was sacrificed. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. That's what I saw in verse 4. It reminded me of the archaeological research that I've done on that.
Yeah, no, I think archaeological research is definitely very, very important. And there's also, in the archaeological study, you also find that a lot of artifacts were stolen, a lot of artifacts were destroyed. We see sometimes, when sculptures were found, they broke the noses off so you couldn't recognize what they look like. All of these things, go into understanding how archaeological finds are support what it says in Scripture, and how we shouldn't ignore them. Very good point. JP, and then Sister Diane. Shabbat shalom. Yeah.
Shabbat shalom, Shema, Fayah. Hallelujah. I find it amazing and interesting, because you got this, Moses comes in 24 verse 3. He tells the people all the words of Yahuwah, all the judgments of the right rulings. And all the people, they answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yahuwah has said will we do. Real cut, clear, easy. Today, you go and tell the people, and there's a problem with it. And I'm like, man, like, you know, why isn't it so cut and easy? Like, just they just said we're gonna do, right? And then you get to verse 7, and he took the book of the covenant, he read in the audience of all the people, and they said, all that Yahuwah has said will we do and be obedient. Then you get to verse 8, and he says, Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, he says, after they said we will do, they agreed. They said, if Yahuwah said that, we're going to do. He got the blood and he sprinkled it on the people. And then he says, behold, the blood of the covenant which Yahuwah hath made with you concerning all these words. Now they're covered in the blood. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just something about this the covenant, the significance of just saying, Yahuwah said it, I'm going to do it. And today I feel like there's this defiant. There's like a defiant, you know. Now I understand before you come into understanding that, you know, there's a defiant because you don't understand. So you only know what you're being told by your teacher. But once you come to understanding and then you're still being defiant, it's like there's no submission at that point. You're not submitting to what the scriptures say. And these people here, these Israelites, you know, they got the understanding. They said, we're going to do.
Did they?
And so, well, I know I know that, but what I'm saying is by their words, and they just said, we're going to go, like, we're going to obey. Right. And I feel like that's what I feel like when we get to verse 8, the blood gets sprinkled on them, which to me, it represents, you know, that covering. And it's just something about it just was like speaking to me is like, man, you know, why can't we be the same way once we come to understanding, you know?
Yeah, no. You're absolutely right. I agree with what you're saying 100%. There's something about the quality of the words here, you know, hearing something from Yah, knowing it's coming from Yah and saying, I'm going to do it. And I do believe when they said it, they were sincere, right? However, it didn't carry out in their actions because we talked about earlier, they tried to do it in their own strength. They didn't depend on him. They didn't listen to the messenger, right? They didn't follow the cloud. They wanted to do their own thing, you know, and they continually had to be warned about the same things over and over. And so what does that mean to us now? That means that, you know, we're saying we'll obey today, but what about tomorrow when we're faced with that compromised situation? Like you say, I don't think Yah would worry. I don't think he'd be mad at me if I did. Nah, if that's a violation of the law today, it's a violation of the law tomorrow. There's no exceptions. You know, we can't bend things to our thinking and operate in the things that we want for ourselves. But we do that. We do the exact same thing. So I think the ultimate picture is totally placing our total dependence, I said total twice, completely putting our confidence in Yah, completely, like without question, like there's no question that if he tells me to stop and pray right now, I'm going to pray. If he tells me to run up this hill 3 or 4 times and on the 6th time, shout, and deliverance is coming, whatever deliverance means, you know, at that moment, you know, did we follow his instructions to a T without hesitation? Did we Abraham it? Did we pull that knife out to slay our child and wait for him to say, stop, no, wait, I have provided in the bush a sacrifice, right? So this is what it's saying, but I think there's beauty in the understanding and the immediate submission that you're talking about. I agree with you 100%. But to carry it out and not say what they said and do what they do, but say what they said and do what they said. You know what I mean? There's a difference there. And I think the ultimate picture is that we have to do that too. But yeah, great point, because that's missed. That we don't obey immediately. This question like, well, I don't think we got to do that no more. Well, the culture was that, and all of these excuses. No, he said, I have not made this burdensome for you. This is how you shall live if you call me by my name. So praise Yah. Sister Diane, then Brother Nathaniel. Good stuff, JP.
Yeah, I was just wondering, this is a question. I looked up a couple of the cross references, but those 70 elders, my first thought was, were these the 70 that Moses picked out at the advice of his father-in-law, Jethro? Or I see over in, let's see, what is this? I see over in Numbers 11:16, where Yahuwah said unto Moses, gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them unto the tabernacle of the congregation, that they may stand there with you. So, I was just wondering, perhaps you guys can help me out, you elders can help me out, that were these the same? Like Nahab and Abihu, for instance, we know later on, I believe it's over in the next chapter, the next book of whatever they create, they make an abomination and they're destroyed. But were these 70 the ones that Moses had already appointed, or did Yahuwah have him to appoint 70 different elders?
Well, according now, any of you can correct me on this. I don't know for certain. So if anybody has a direct answer for Sister Diane, please give it. But from what I'm reading, it appears that there were more than 70, and it said 70 of the elders. So if they're out of all the elders, take 70 of them to do thus and so. So that's what it appears to be here, and in the same thing in Numbers, 70 of however many that there were. So
yeah, I was thinking that was like and 70. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, of the elders. So they weren't necessarily all appointed, but he just had to take 70 out of is okay.
that's my understanding. Because you spoke on Numbers 11, also in Leviticus 10. It says this. Then Nahab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it, put incense on it, and offered profane fire before Yahuwah, which he had not commanded them. So fire went out from Yahuwah and devoured them, and they died before Yahuwah. And Moses said to Aaron, this is what Yahuwah is saying, by those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy, and before all the people, I must be glorified. So Aaron held his peace. So you have two people that were called out, set apart from the set apart, to be holy before the people, and they performed abominations. Yahuwah had to cut them off immediately, right? So so I definitely see that as the called out of the called out, so that there were 70 of the elders that were there. Anyone have any more information on that, please chime in to help us.
Okay, and I just wanted to ask, along with that, the other part of that question was, could these 70 be the same 70 that Moses appointed at the advice of Jethro, or were these a different set of men?
I don't have that answer right offhand, but we'll look and try to find that answer.
Thank you.
All right. Brother Nathaniel?
Yeah, on that, I have a different. I was going to say something different, but just on that, um, it's it's interesting that 70 elders. It just kind of reminds me about the 70 that were what's the word I'm looking for? Commissioned. That's the word. The 70 that were commissioned that Yahusha commissioned. So he commissions the 12. I think it's Luke 9, then Luke 10. He commissions the 70. There definitely seems to be a number with that 70. But I was going to touch on what you were talking about earlier. Just I was going to give it a supporting scripture. Malachi 3:6. For I am Yahuwah, I shall not change. And you, O sons of Jacob, shall not come to an end. And then Hebrews 13:8 says that Yahushua HaMashiach is the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? So their walk doesn't change. And not to get into a detail on it, when you read the blessings and curses of Deuteronomy 28, and then you go into chapter 29, and then read why bad things had come upon this people, and then you go into chapter 30. Like 30 verse 4 and 30 verse 10 of Deuteronomy say that when they return, they will return to what was commanded here today. And so that's what we're, it's not about like what you said about, oh, well, the culture then meant such and such, but now, it's one and the same. There is no change in it. So that's all I wanted to share on that.
Very good, brother. I appreciate that. That's, we have to bring, we have to tear down these false understandings. Not so much pinpoint everything that's false, but make sure we're not taking false understandings from what Scripture is saying. We have to right the wrongs that are being told to us and preached to us and written about. Just because there's a YouTube video on it doesn't mean it's true. We got to look in Scripture and make sure that we see what Yah is saying to us. So that's very important what you just said, brother. Culture and time doesn't change the words of Yah. Praise Yah. All right. So let's read the second and the last part of the chapter and finish up. Someone else, who read last? Nathaniel read. Anyone else want to read? If not, you can read again, brother. Brother Mike? JP?
Yeah, I'm ready. Unless Mike's ready. I don't know. It looked like Mike was ready, so.
I'm digging the
No,
beard. I like
ready.
the beard. It's coming in nice, brother.
Yeah, it's coming in. He ain't ready. All right, I'll go for it.
I wish I could grow one.
Says in verse 9, starting in verse 9, Exodus 24. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, when they saw the Elohim of Israel, and there was under his feet as it were a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in his clearness. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he laid not his hand. Also they saw Elohim and did eat and drink. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Come up to me into the mount, and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone and a law and the commandments which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. And Moses rose up, and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mountain of Elohim. And he said unto the elders, Tarry you here for us, until we come again unto you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. And Moses went up into the mount, and the cloud covered the mount, and the glory of Yahuwah abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of Yahuwah was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gathered him up into the mount, and Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights.
Go ahead, brother.
Um, um, I'll probably wait because I wanted to speak on some stuff towards the end, but
Okay.
well, I'll just say this. In verse 12 it says, Yahuwah said unto Moses, "Come up unto me into the mount and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone and the law and commandments which I've written." So I'm just wondering, are they all? It seems like they would be separated. From the grammar. When you look in the writing, you're like, oh, well, it sounds separated. And I think that's where people have come into some understanding that they're separated. Like if he says, I'm going to give thee tables of stone, comma, and the law, comma, and commandments, which I have written, that thou mayest teach them, and as if they're three different portions. Or were they all, of course, one portion? So that would be something I would ask from your guys' thoughts and what you think.
So you're saying the mention of the law and the commandments being separate? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, it sounds like he says, and I will give thee tables of stone, and then because then it says, and a law. So he's going to give them tables of stone, which seems like maybe there's a covenant written on those stones, like on these stones. But then he's going to give you a law or a Torah. And then it says, and commandments. So now is this saying like there are three separate like pieces of work, like as far as articles, like as if he's getting like different, or is it just all in one and they're all together, but they're just in a explanation of them all being together, but these are the different things that are going to be that together. You know what I mean? So just want to ask that and see what you guys' thoughts are. I know that there's conversation about that. So see what
All
kind
right.
of
Yeah.
thoughts.
No, I want to hear the conversation before I say anything. Is anyone who wants to respond to what JP said before we move on? Anyone? Mike? All right. Go ahead, brother.
Shabbat Shalom, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, when I actually came into a similar Yahuwah, what the Voda in the beginning, I came in with that mentality from another guy from YouTube. But so because I believe that there is a book of the covenant and then there is the book of the law because of those verses and other verses similar. But it got squashed because I think it was Jadiel. So somebody that had shown me where those things are also used interchangeably. So sometimes when it's talking about the law, it'll mention the covenant. Sometimes when it's talking about the covenant, it'll mention the law. But so I would say it's the last one that you referred to, which is there are three things that are the same thing. So we know the covenant is the commandments are part of his law. So like if we're not keeping the Shabbat and all these things that we know and we see that we're supposed to and we're not doing it, we can't claim to be part of the covenant, even though the covenant isn't the law. You know what I'm saying? But it is, the law is a part of the covenant. So which is why they're all used interchangeably. It's kind of like saying Hebrew or Israelite or son of Yah, or like they're different words for the same thing, different aspects, but yeah.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards that same understanding as it being one in which Yah is handing over everything at one time. So, but I like to look into that more myself personally. But yeah, Brother Nathaniel had his hand up.
No, maybe I had it up from earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking up that Book of the Covenant and Law thing right now. So
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Is it okay if I move on to something else that we read?
Absolutely.
I just want to add one more thing as you're just to kind of leave off. Because, and the reason why I say, because, you go to, and again, this is what I like to search it out, with your brothers. Like 24/7, it was specific, and he says he took the book of the covenant, and I guess that's what we have to look into. Like, what does that consist of? What does the book of the covenant consist of? You know what I mean? And so when we get back to over there in 12, because he says, and a law, and I'm like, because I've done a study where the law, it really, it don't, like there's a teaching, should I say, that these brothers brought out, that the law consists of the sacrificial law, like the system, or and then there's then you got another same thought with the same thought that's the law, and then you got, so when people say the law is done away with, you're like, well, in a sense, you can say, yeah, that the law is done away with when it comes to the sacrificial system, because if it only applies to that. So that's something to study out. I'm still studying it out to see if it only applies in that manner. And then we have our commandments, and then we have our statutes, and we have our ordinances. So then there's these 4 portions. And so at this place here, that's why I spoke as if it were written in different pieces. And, so go ahead, brother.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So now that I can answer that specifically because it gives us within the chapter, it gives us a clear understanding of what that is. So if you look at verse 7, he says, then he took the book of the covenant and read in hearing of the people, and they said, all that Yahuwah has said, we will do. That is what they agreed to. So up to that point would be from chapter 20 up to the end of chapter 23, where everything is listed that they should do. And we know that because in verse 3 of chapter 24 it says, so Moses came and told the people all of the words of Yahuwah, all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yahuwah have said, we will do. And Moshe wrote all the words of Yahuwah. And he rose up early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and the 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. So when he says covenant, that's what he's talking about. And Moses wrote it all down, but when Yahuwah hands him the stone, it's what Yahuwah wrote. So he writes all these things out too and hands them to Moshe. So when we look at the book of the covenant and what he's referring to, it would be what they already agreed to in the signing right there that day. Sister Poppy, then Brother Nathaniel. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry, Mike was getting ready to go first. Then Sister Poppy, then Brother Nathaniel.
Yeah, JP cut me off. Nah, I went kind of on the same vein. This might actually give a little more context, I guess, maybe. Depends on what you're looking at. But I just think it's really interesting when Yahuwah says that he's going to give him, tables of stone, and how that those tables of stone also is him giving Moshe and the people the covenant as well, because the covenant is in and on those stones. And here we have Messiah, who is the Word made flesh, who is our chief cornerstone, who is throughout Scripture called our rock, our strong foundation. We're supposed to stand on solid ground, talking about Messiah. So it's just interesting how Messiah is our rock, and He is the covenant, and He is the Word made flesh, and the covenant was to Him and for Him. And Moses was given the covenant on stone. So for me, it just seems like symbolisms for Messiah. The fact that they're even receiving the covenant again, which is like you receive the covenant when you receive Messiah. So I thought that was interesting. And then right after that, it says that that he's gonna he's going to send someone to lead them, you know. So I believe that just the whole covenant thing that he's talking about is not even about the commandments on the stone. It was actually talking about Messiah in the stone, you know, as symbology.
Yeah, very good. Sister Poppy, and then Brother Nate. Thank you.
Your voice was low, Brother Rod, again, so.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah.
Okay, bear with me just a minute. In Hebrews 9:4, it says, to which belonged the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid on all sides with gold, in which were the golden pot that held the manna, and the rod of Aharon that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. Sorry. And then in 1 Kings 8:10, it says, was in the ark only the two tablets of stone which Moshe put there at Horeb were Yahweh children of Yisrael. Then they came out of the land of Mitzrayim. And then in Deuteronomy 31:24, it says, and when it came to be when Moshe had completed writing the words of this Torah in a book until their completion, that Moshe commanded the Levites who bore the ark of the covenant, saying, take this book of the Torah, and you shall place it beside the ark of the covenant of Yahweh your Elohim, and it shall be there as a witness against you. That one they placed beside. There was a covenant placed inside the ark and a covenant placed outside the ark. And I think they muddy the waters by saying Torah or law to all of them. But if you trace it back, there is a distinction. And then can I ask a question also? Get back to where I was. And the Exodus 24:16, when it said, and the esteem of Yahweh dwelt on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days, and on the seventh day he called to Moshe out of the midst of the cloud. Was that like a purification process or purification time for Moshe to be in the cloud for 7 days?
You said, say that again, was it a purification process?
Yeah, like a time of purification, because Moshe went up and then stayed within the clouds for until the seventh day that Yahweh called him to him. Or am I misreading that? Yeah, the seventh day he called Moshe out of the midst of the cloud, and that's when he saw Yahweh. So wasn't he having to like stay in the cloud for until the seventh day? I was just wondering if that was like a purification or something. Can't hear you.
An answer for you. Anyone have an answer for that? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing though. What you brought out, sister. It was interesting when I read that. When I was reading, I was like, wow, like it says that, and the cloud covered it 6 days. On the seventh day, he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. So I was just thinking the same thing though. I had the same kind of question in my mind. Like he was up there, he didn't speak to Yahuwah. Like it seems like for 6 days he was just in this. Maybe it was like a purification process. You know, you're in this cloud in the like the incense. You know, like how the incense is burning and cleaning them up, and then he's going to be able to see him on the seventh day. It was something interesting though.
I don't know if this is related or not, but Exodus 33:9 says, and it came to pass when Moshe entered the tabernacle that the pillar of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and Yahuwah talked with Moses. I don't know. That's it. To be honest with you, that's a verse that I never looked to to understand. So it's a good time to for us to try to flesh out what this means. Um, but go ahead, Nathaniel, and then Mike, and anybody can answer that if they have an answer for it.
No, I don't have. I mean, I can see how that would be like a purification. I can see that, but I don't. Drawing off that, I mean, I can't say that it's not, but I can't say that it is. But it does make sense that that's what it would be. But I was gonna mention. Let me find it here. Talking about the Book of the Covenant. So in Deuteronomy 29:21. Says, and Yahuwah shall separate him for evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the Torah. And so the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the Torah. And then I have here in 2 Kings 23:2 and 3, and the king went up to the house of Yahuwah with all the men of Yehuda and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, which had been found in the house of Yahuwah. And the sovereign stood by the column and made a covenant before Yahuwah to follow and guard his commands and his witnesses and his laws, and with all his heart and all his soul, to establish the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. And then we'll see another one in 2 Kings, same chapter, 23:21. And the king commanded all the people, saying, prepare the Pesach to Yahuwah, your Elohim, as it is written in this book of the covenant. So if we just kind of go on what that says, again, in verse 3, it says, to follow and guard his commands and his witnesses and his laws, to establish the words of this covenant, which were written in this book. So, and I see an aspect of the covenant. So just one final thing to read over what we did is Deuteronomy 29:21, to kind of bring it back full circle. And Yahuwah shall separate him from evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the law. So I kind of see kind of like what Brother Mike was saying, kind of like an interchangeableness, that the law was written in the covenant and the covenant was written in the law. And it only said that they found the one book, but all the instructions were written therein. So, I remember brother Mike had talked to me when a while ago about this, and he had brought this question, and then we went looking. We didn't get any answers, and then he came back to me later on and shared these verses that I'm sharing here about how he now thinks that it is one and the same. I don't want to speak for Mike, but if I believe that that's what he was talking about, was that he had come to that determination through these scripture verses that they were kind of one and the same.
Yeah, no, I like that. I liked when Mike said it, and I like the scriptures you pulled out from, to get that understanding. And it's important that we know for certain, I think, because there are teachings out there saying that we only have to obey one of them, and separating the two when it's only one. So I know you guys know that. So, but I wanted to get back real quick, Mike, before you go to the question that Sister Poppy was asking about verse 16, and it's part of the whole thing in what he's saying. He says in verse 12, we back up to verse 12, it says, then Yahuwah said to Moshe, come up to me in the mountain and be there, and I will give you the tablets of stone and the law and the commandments which I have written, that you may teach them. So it may have been a purification process, but it also may have been a time for Moshe to sit down and read through everything that Yah gave him, And then on the seventh day, which seems like it's a Sabbath, it doesn't say it's a Sabbath, but it says the seventh day, he calls them out. So I think that all of that goes into the context of verse 16. So we have to read all of that to get a clear understanding, because he tells them, I think, where was it, Exodus 19? He tells them he's coming to them in a thick cloud, so that's where he resided. That's where he was able to communicate with them. So I don't know if that helps, but it definitely helped me. Brother Mike.
Yeah, going back to what Nate was saying, there is one key verse too, just to like knock that all the way home, which is 2 Kings chapter 22, because the first verse that Nate read was from chapter 23, where it says that they read the book of the law. But if you go back to 2 Kings 22 verse 8, it tells you what the book was, because they had found it. So it says, verse 8, chapter 22 verse 8 says, and Hezekiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of Yahuwah. And Hezekiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. And so as you go forward now to 2 Kings 23, when it's talking about what was being read, it was the book they had found, which one chapter calls it the book of the covenant, one chapter calls it the book of the law, but it's both referred to the book that was found in the house of Yahuwah. So, and then continuing in chapter 23, like Nate did, you see it's again reiterated both different ways. Also, just the simple fact of, yeah, okay, oh snap, this is up. I'm sorry. The simple fact of all these different commands that we have in Torah, saying one law for for the native and the non-native, like there's always one law, one covenant as well. So, like I said, that they're absolutely interchangeable. But when it does say stuff like laws, statutes, and commands, all of those are the covenant, which is why you can't separate. Like there's different commandments, but they're not. Well, this commandment is they're all covenant. So yeah, just to add that.
No, that's a great clarification. What you read out of chapter 22 and then tied into what Nathaniel had read in chapter 23 is soothing to my soul, because the question stumped me even when I was reading. So I didn't further look into it, and now I have a better understanding. So praise y'all for that. Thank you, brothers. JP.
Well, nah. I was thinking, what you're saying though, Brother Rod, about him reading and getting the all these, it says what it says, the tables of stone and law and commandments, and it would make sense for that to be the 6 days. You know what I mean? Because that would be like labor, like his working. You know what I mean? And then the 7th day, the rest. It kind of I was just putting it together with that. I thought that would make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he would be in that process of going through the what Yahuwah is giving them, and then the 7th day coming. I don't know, something like that. I was just thinking. It just clicked.
Yeah. No, I think when you connect the other verses, it gives you the full context of what it means versus just looking at that verse. And because it's a whole process, and there's a reason given why he's calling them up there. So he tells us why he's calling them up there to get the tablets. So praise Yah. And the last thing I'll say, I'll kind of close this out. We're a little past our time, but so Moshe went up, verse 18, into the midst of the cloud, into the mountain. And Moshe was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So it doesn't say he took a snack bag up there. It doesn't say there was a feast up there. It says he was up there for 40 days and for 40 nights. And we know that Job said Yahuwah's words were more than his necessary food, were more to him than his necessary food. And, just reminded me of that, being in the presence of Yah, being in his, in the presence of his glory is everything we need, every satisfaction we need, sustenance, drink, food, our mental capacity, our physical capacity, all rests in being in his presence. So I kind of wanted to close with that. If anyone has anything else before we close. All right. Well, this concludes Exodus chapter 24 study. Very good study. I learned quite a bit as I was reading through. You brothers and sisters really are sharpening on a continual weekly basis. As we study together, we are able to fill in the holes, of our understanding. Because sometimes and I think that Yahuwah means it that way. So that we're not all be all end all, like we know it all. Like, nah, we got some holes that need to be filled, and they're only filled by getting sharpened by our brothers and sisters. So I think this is a very good study, a very good example of us coming up with an understanding conglomerately, without, guessing, saying, no, let's dig, let's find out what this means. And I think we did that today. So praise Yah for that. Brother Nate, and then we'll close out.
Oh, are we still on recording or no?
Yeah, let me close this out.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and close it out.
All right, so again, thank you for, just your time today, and praise Yah. Shabbat Shalom, and read ahead as we'll go into the offerings of the sanctuary next week in chapter 25 of the book of Exodus. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom, Akuti, and Brohim. Thank you so much for viewing this video. We hope it was helpful to your walk in the truth. Remember to always search the scriptures on your own, to study Abba's word and show yourself approved, according to 2 Timothy 2:15. We invite you to study with us. To join us in a live study, just go to our website at assemblyofyahuwah.com and click the Join Us tab. We have something available Wednesday through Saturday of every week. If you've been Baruch or blessed by this video today or any other study, we encourage you to go to the Giving tab on our website. Our elders all have their own ways of income, so none of the giving or proceeds go to them. Instead, it goes to biblical assembly needs. We also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any new videos. We sincerely pray that Abba continues to direct your path as you acknowledge Him in all your ways. Much avaha, and again, shalom.